Hi and welcome to a new camera comparison. My name is Sam from Words.com and today we are taking a closer look at how the camera systems of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III performs in direct comparison to the one of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Both phones have a triple rear camera setup and each of the cameras has 12 megapixels. The Sony has a 24mm wide angle, a 16mm ultra wide angle and the world's first variable telephoto lens camera. So you can choose between 70mm and 105mm. The iPhone on the other hand has a 26mm wide angle, a 13mm ultra wide angle and a 65mm telephoto lens camera. In addition to that, both use technologies to help them recognize the distance to an object to produce sharper images, especially in low light situations. Enough of the specs, let's take them into the field testing now. But before we start, if you'd like to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now let's start straight away with our camera comparison. Let the facts speak. We start off with a video comparison. This video was shot with the ultra-wide camera on both in 4K and 30 frames per second. The first difference is the field of view. The iPhone has a wider field of view than the Xperia. The next thing that gets obvious pretty fast is that the iPhone is way sharper and has more details. The Xperia has a really soft image. The colors, or mostly the red on the iPhone, appears somehow too saturated. It looks like a dark pink. The Xperia does a better job in this one, but falls apart when it comes to dynamic range. It really struggles here. Let's zoom in a little bit by switching to the wide camera. The Xperia's image gets a little bit sharper, but still not as sharp as the iPhone. Zooming in 2.5 times, the iPhone retains its sharpness, while the Xperia gets way softer again. Both phones don't really shine when maxing out the zoom capability. While the iPhone only zooms in 7 times, the Xperia zooms in 12.5 times. We cropped and imposed an iPhone's image to have a direct comparison. Both look similarly bad. As far as stabilization goes, Sony seems to be handling it a little bit better, but not significantly. The Xperia also handles the macro capability only slightly better than the iPhone. But when it comes to autofocus, the iPhone is taking the lead again. It focuses faster on a subject that suddenly appears in the frame. The continuous focus seems also be better on the iPhone, even though it is really hard to tell because the Xperia is quite dark in this scenario. If you like to freeze emotion, the slow motion feature is the right feature to choose. In this case, the Xperia shoots 120 frames per second in 4K and the iPhone 240 frames per second in 1080p. So it is clear that the iPhone once again has the upper hand here. And last but not least, before we head over to photography, a crucial feature of videography is the front camera video and the audio quality. So this is actually the video and audio quality of the front camera of Sony's Xperia 1 Mark III. And this is the audio and video quality of the front camera of the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Let's start photography with the segment that we ended the videography segment with, the portrait mode feature. And again, the Xperia can't really handle the dynamic range. It blows out the background way too much. The algorithm has a big mistake, as you can see on the right side of my forehead. The portrait mode and the next one is equally good on both. What differentiates them are the way how they handle the colors and brightness. The iPhone seems quite accurate while the Xperia seems flat and too bright, which is also the case in the next picture. But this time the Xperia is handling the tricky portrait depth of field better than the iPhone, which does not blur out the branch right next to my head. The last picture from the rear camera portrait mode is continuing the already established theme that the Xperia is blurring out the background. Let's switch to the selfie portrait mode on the front camera. The main difference again is the blown out background in Xperia's picture. And this time the blur in Apple's picture appears a little bit too unnatural. The 1 Mark III on the other hand is less blurred, which makes it look more natural. Both pictures contain some minor algorithm failures. The already mentioned blur differences are even more visible in the next one. The Xperia struggles a lot with the leaves and branches in the background, whereas the iPhone does a decent job. The last one again has everything I just said combined in one picture. The too bright background in Sony's image and the seemingly too much blur in Apple's. By moving to the rear camera system, we will once again take a look at each of the cameras. Starting again with the ultra-wide camera. At first we couldn't spot a significant difference, except that the iPhone has more saturated colors. The picture quality on both seem equally sharp. The same appears in the image of the wide camera. But then when moving closer by zooming in 3 times, it becomes visible that Apple does a better job retaining sharpness, while Sony is becoming softer. At 10 times zoom, the sharp image of the iPhone becomes too over-sharpened, which looks very digital enhanced, while Sony looks more pleasing to the eye. The same occurs when maxing out the zoom. Okay, so far, so good. Now we take a closer look at the macro capability. Both phones don't have a dedicated macro camera. Still, Sony gets slightly closer to the object than Apple. Before we show you more sample images, we'd like to see you this image, because it once again makes visible how the Xperia is burning out the bright parts of the image, which is something that is recurring in a lot of images and something that Sony really seems to struggle with. Alright, so it is time to dim down the lights and see how the device is handling shooting photos and videos in nighttime. The first feature that we take a look at is a portrait mode. One of the main differences is again the amount of blurriness, which we already saw in the daylight pictures. It actually seems as if Sony's portrait mode is turned off. The other main difference is the white balance. While the Xperia has really warm colors, the iPhone is really cold. A mix between them would be perfect. In terms of sharpness, the iPhone has again the slight upper hand. In addition to that, Sony adds tons of grain. Switching to the portrait mode of the front camera, both are struggling a lot in terms of overall image quality. In the first image, both cameras are equally bad. In the second one, Sony performs surprisingly better. The iPhone really struggles in terms of sharpness. Next up are some samples again, shot on the wide camera on both phones. Overall, the iPhone appears darker than the Xperia, but at the same time sharper. The Xperia also creates weird flares around the light bulbs, which you can especially see in this image. When switching to the video feature, the Xperia suddenly becomes very dark to a point where almost only the light sources are visible. Whereas the iPhone brightens up the image with the cost of losing a lot of quality, as you can see. The same appears when recording a video with the ultrawide camera. Due to a more lit up environment, there's more to recognize in Sony's video. Even though it is still not great, the video is definitely better compared to the video of Apple's phone, which has an unsatisfying amount of grain. So, can Apple's iPhone 12 Pro Max still compete with the new Sony Xperia 1 Mark III? Well, I definitely say yes. The iPhone still has a superb camera system and has had mostly the upper hand in this comparison. In a lot of scenarios it was sharper, but sometimes it was over-sharpening the image, in which case the Xperia performed better. The Xperia has a softer image and somehow burns the bright parts of the image. Overall, we kind of expected a little bit more from Sony. We hope that the problems that occurred in this comparison are things that can be fixed in a software update. We have to mention that we shot everything in basic mode. The Xperia, like its predecessor, has a pro mode, but you have to hold the phone horizontally, which is in our opinion disappointing. And the basic mode has less than a handful of features. A time-lapse mode is missing, for example. In the end, we hope that we were able to show you the most important features that might help you to decide which of the phones you would rather get. If so, let us know in the comments below which camera you like the most. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. Till then, take care and see you in the next one.